Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bang on Sales show. As I often like to do, I thought I would introduce today's guest by just reading a little bit from her LinkedIn bio, right? So, my guest today is passionate about using technology to drive results and connecting people virtually to create more meaningful connections. Here, here. Client success being the core of this. She loves a challenge and she's goal oriented. She enjoys motivating people to sell better and do better. And she also is enthusiastic about physical and mental health, above all, and growth as well, by being challenged and getting out of our comfort zones on a regular basis. And I agree with this when she says energy and enthusiasm bring better outcomes. And fundamentally, we have to focus on the inner success to drive the outer success. I love that. I love that. Today's
Great.
guest, Charlotte Lloyd. How are you doing, Charlotte?
Hi, Mark. Mark Banks. How are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, good, good, good. I always feel a bit weird when people address me by my full name, but yeah, that's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine.
me too.
Yeah, just obviously I've read a little bit about you, but do you want to maybe introduce yourself? Just tell us a bit about you.
Yes, so I have been in sales now for almost 20 years. I've seen and done everything. Sales is constantly changing. I recently switched roles 2 years ago. So I was in 13 years in the same company, selling quite a traditional I would say service with well-known brand Financial Times,
Mhm.
and realized after 13 years that I hadn't been coming out of my comfort zone enough and needed to challenge myself. So stepping into a new role felt quite daunting, even though I've got more experience than sort of some of the younger salespeople, and had to adapt and be agile. So this is one of the reasons that I love sales, that you're constantly learning, and it's a never sort of ending process of improvement and being open to improving your personal development.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a hallmark of success in beyond sales, but obviously we're talking about sales here. Is that humility and growth mindset to
Yeah.
be like, right, I can learn more, I can get better, and I want to continue to get better, which kind of starts with understanding that you're not perfect and that there's always room for improvement, right? I kind of see that in your content as well. So I'd imagine half the people watching this or listening to this will already know you from your amazing content on LinkedIn. But there's a bit of has there been a bit of trial and error there for you and improving and refining over time? Because I've seen your style sort of changing over or evolving over time. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so when I started posting frequently on LinkedIn around about 18 months ago now, I was talking a lot about the brand that I started working for. So it
Mm.
was a big switch, and was putting out content, getting some engagement. But part of the reason that I wanted to help sellers was because I switched to a new role. I almost had to, I realized that I'd stayed stagnant for 13 years in my previous role. So there were lots of things that I had to learn. Like I said, being agile, being adaptable. And I felt that, in a lot of corporate companies, there isn't enough training. Even smaller companies, the sales team don't get enough training. You have to now own your personal development. So part of the reason that I sort of switched my content to, I'm going to help sellers, I want to share sales tactics, because this was something that I never really had. I had a couple of, maybe two or three sales training cohorts at the companies I work for, but with a long career, the sales training that I've had has been, that there wasn't, the corporate environment didn't provide that sales training as regularly as it should have. So this is what inspired me to sort of go out and create my own content to help salespeople, AEs, BDRs, SDRs, CROs, sales teams, and I get quite a lot of feedback now. Not everyone agrees, but I think most people, they say that they like my content, sales content is different, and that I'm being myself. I'm sharing what works and what doesn't work. So, we all have conversations in sales where, you might have a difficult day, you get hung up on a cold call. So it's about sharing that and hoping that, by doing that, I'm inspiring other salespeople to challenge themselves.
You posted something, it was last couple of days, because you just said not everyone agrees. What was it you said in your post? It was like if everybody agrees with you, if everyone in the room agrees with you, then there's what is it?
Only
There's
one
one
person is
person,
thinking.
only one
Yeah, if
person.
everyone agrees with you always, then only one person is thinking.
Mm, yeah, no, I like that. What hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot too much here, but like what advice could you offer for people in terms of self-development? And I suppose there's a couple of parts to this question. There's the more junior person or the person who's sort of maybe just a couple of years into their career and is realizing, hang on, I am going to need to take ownership over my own
Yeah.
development. But also maybe because you mentioned, CROs, you're a sales leader yourself. So yeah, for the more junior people, but also maybe people that are a little bit further along in their career, for those two types of people, what would you advise in terms of, I mean, even if it's like book recommendations or podcasts, like how do you continue to develop?
Yeah. I am a big fan of so my information diet, I read a lot of books. That's one thing that I would recommend. And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter, if you're a VP of sales, you're a CRO, you still need to keep learning. So what I'd say to somebody who's more senior is not just read books, listen to a few good podcasts, but not too many. But be able to get on demos, on proposal calls, discovery calls with your team. Your learning doesn't stop just because you're the VP and you're managing people. You might, doesn't matter how big your team is. You need to be going on calls with your sales team and listening to what's being said. You need to constantly be learning. You need to be helping your team to do better.
Yeah, I like that. And listening is a big word there, right? So go on calls, go to meetings, but listen, be an observer, right? Provide some guidance and set some guardrails if necessary. But I've
Yeah.
had it in the past where I'll have a sales manager, sales director go on a meeting with me, and they're doing 90% of the talking. And you come out of it thinking, well, I didn't really,
Ah,
I was too passive in that. Have you experienced that? Or
I
have you been
have,
guilty of
yes.
that?
I have. There's some VP sort of sales leaders who like the sound of their own voice. And obviously on any call, it's 60%, the client talks 60%, the salesperson talks 40% or even less. So I do think that I feel very strongly that not enough VPs of sales and CROs are actually getting, as we say, in the trenches with their team to know what's really happening. And it's the same for marketing as well. So part of the content I create on LinkedIn, starting my own podcast in May this year, it's also to help marketers. So when I switched roles, I started selling a MarTech solution, and I started to see that not enough of my prospects know about marketing. They haven't really delved into sort of all the different marketing options that are available to them. So the reason that the podcast was born, sort of, it was to help not just to help sellers and help them with their sales tactics, but also help marketers and understand more, what is it that marketing people do? How can sales and marketing teams be more aligned? So, if you're a marketer, you want to be jumping on a call with some of your sales team. You want to see what sort of objections they're getting, what problems, and that then will help you to craft better marketing messaging. And the same for salespeople. Sellers need to jump on calls with their marketing team, get good at writing copy. A lot of the sales technique and that you use, perhaps create a playbook, create content about how you're selling to your clients and to your prospects, and start to help the marketing team with that copy as well. So sellers need to be really good at marketing, and marketers now need to be really good at selling.
I like that because I'm big on revenue alignment, sales marketing, operational alignment, but unless you really understand each other's worlds and the challenges that you face and so on and what you're trying to achieve, then really they're just buzzwords and it doesn't really mean much, right? Because you can have a few meetings together, but then there's nothing really actionable because you can't really integrate with each other properly. So no, I like that. And writing is huge, right? So I was going to touch on this a minute ago. So we all need to be better writers, and I think that that's a way that we can learn as well. They say you learn by teaching, and when you start trying to teach something, you realize that you actually don't understand it as well as you thought, because you can't break it down into simple terms that are easy to understand and so on. So I think, yeah, writing, even if it's, yeah, well, I mean, we write a lot though, don't we? I mean, even forgetting LinkedIn content for a second, emails,
Yeah.
proposals, there's so much to it.
The key is not to overthink it. I think I used to think that I'm not a good writer. I work with journalists. I'm selling their content creation.
Mm.
Uh, that used to hold me back. I used to think I'm not a really good writer like a journalist. I can't put content on LinkedIn or on social media platforms because who's going to read it? And I think when people come to me, this is one of the main things that they say. They're like, I don't know what to write. My writing isn't going to be good enough, and they're overthinking what they should put into a post. Writing is about, it's having a conversation. You need to be able to write. I think, is it Lavender that tells you how to write a good email? You need to write a sort of a 10 or 11-year-old child needs to be able to read that and understand it. So it's nothing with, don't use lots of adverbs, lots of adjectives. Don't overcomplicate your writing. Talk to yourself as if you were, talking to yourself 6 months ago. What did Mark want to know 6 months ago that he doesn't know now? These are all, things that you can think about when you're creating a post on LinkedIn, or even if you're creating your own copy. But going forward, everyone, doesn't matter if they're a seller or a marketer, they're going to have to get more comfortable with writing and putting out a conversation on LinkedIn, getting a conversation going.
Yeah, and LinkedIn in particular, I think, really improves the quality of actual face-to-face Zoom calls or face-to-face meetings, right? Because I mean, we know it. This is personal. It's personal branding. It's to some extent is the dark social stuff as well. There's that familiarity there, right? You're putting yourself out there every single day. Your face is popping up on people's feeds, or they're getting notifications when you post. And if you're not, then click the bell on Charlotte's profile so that you get notifications when she posts. So yeah, I'm guessing you've told me before, right? You'll get on a call or have a meeting with somebody who's not really active on LinkedIn, and you can tell the difference, right? Could you talk about that a bit?
Yes, so this is interesting. I went to an event a couple of weeks ago, and I want to say that most of my prospects, so I sell to locations, to governments who are trying to attract international business. So they might want to get Amazons or DHLs to set up a new fulfillment center or an office in their location. They're not active on LinkedIn. When I'm researching them as part of my outreach, I see that they haven't posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days or more. Which is quite incredible in this day and age now. And going to these events, they would come up to me. Some of them would come up to me and say, it's Charlotte. I see you on LinkedIn all the time. And these prospects are not liking and commenting on my posts. So this is the importance of, it's not just the likes and comments that you get on the post. It's about being seen and creating that visibility. So that helped the conversation. It helped propel the conversation and strengthen the conversation because they see me on LinkedIn. But there was some that, they don't post at all. So you're approaching them and you recognize them from their LinkedIn profile. The conversation with those kind of prospects who are just not on LinkedIn at all, they're LinkedIn ghosts, if you like, the conversation was slightly more awkward at a real in-person event. So, it's really important for everyone to think about putting regular posts on LinkedIn and start small, couple of posts, 3 posts a week, so that when you do meet with your prospects in person, those meetings are going to be more powerful. So you need to have your online relationship, your product, sell the value of your solution first, and then have the real sort of offline relationship that's going to be a lot stronger if your presence online is already stronger.
Love it. I can definitely attest to what you just said. I go to face-to-face business networking events, and people will come up to me. Oh yeah, I like your stuff on LinkedIn, or I've seen your posts or something like that. And in a way, it's a funny little icebreaker, because I always say, well, you could throw me a bone time to time, give me a like, which usually gets laughed from people. But it's just
frustrating when they don't engage.
Yeah. But
But you're
it's
being
funny.
seen. And
Exactly.
I had a conversation with a prospect this week. he's quite prolific on LinkedIn for coming from a location, and he was asking me, he said, look, we're in a situation where we can't actually work with you. However, I like what you're doing on LinkedIn, sort of you're creating your personal brand. Can you give me some tips on how I can improve my personal brand? So we've had a conversation. He's not going to buy from me right now, but the relationship is there, and that started on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you just said there, you do need to take a slightly longer term view of some of this stuff. The point isn't that someone's going to come to you and say, oh, I saw you on LinkedIn. Here's my credit card details. It doesn't work like that most of the time. But yeah, as you say, the relationships there, the familiarity, and what you're doing is you're building a network of like an advocacy network almost, right? And over time, you're going to have people introducing you. I mean, I get it all the time. I'll get introductions on LinkedIn, like DMs, people, referring me to other people and things like that. And then they'll do the same, and it just webs out like that. And I'm sure you probably experience similar, Charlotte. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm conscious we're a little bit limited on time today. So, is there anything in closing that you wanna talk about, promote things that you're excited about?
I want to say to salespeople, first off, the importance of journaling. So every day you want to write down sort of 2 or 3 micro goals for the day. Then you want to write down at the end of the day what you're grateful for, one thing that you're grateful for, and one thing that you're proud of. And also, if you had a tough situation, or you anticipate that you're going to have a tough situation, write that down and how you're going to deal with it. It's so important. Again, it ties back to writing, being able to write down our feelings and recognize that they're feelings and thoughts, and that it is a great motivator. I started doing this about 6 months ago. And one of the things that I wish I'd have done is I wish I'd done it earlier. So, sales, we're going into a downturn. There's lots of talk about this as well. And everyone's feeling that already within their sales cycle. So the really important thing is to journal, to make sure that you stay motivated and that you, above all, are disciplined. So it's creating that discipline so that you can do all the things and show up, even if you are in a sales slump or a downer.
Yeah, I would add to that as well. Try not to be led by fear and doubt and uncertainty. It's times like this we need to lean into it. We need to, as you say, be proactive.
Yeah.
If it's journaling, if it's planning, if it's writing lists, whatever it is, do it. Just do it. And you'll find that sometimes it just gives you that tiny little 2% extra edge because you've done some your homework, you've done some notes beforehand, and you're that much more prepared for the day, for the call, for the whatever it is. And
yeah. Another thing that what it's not just writing down those things, but it's also reading them out loud to yourself in the morning, before you start work, because that's when it makes a difference and what you want to achieve as well, because it's creating that positive mindset. Too many times we're all guilty of this. Negative self-talk can come in, and then you can talk yourself out of doing something. You tell yourself you're not good enough. You need to shut down that voice in your head. And the thing that's been really powerful for me has been journaling.
Yeah. The reality is most people won't do it. I know I might sound harsh, but it's true. Most people listen. I mean, I don't. I used to journal in the past, and I just, it was a habit that kind of just drifted away from me. But it's a very good point, and it's something I should get back to because it is helpful, it is productive, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and there's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he talks about this. And another thing you can do is, for the entire week, set out your clothes on a Sunday evening, prepare for the week. If you don't buy your lunch, set out your meal prep for the week, do all of that, create these habits, because you're not always going to feel motivated, right? Motivation comes and goes. It's having those habits and discipline and being able to do these sort of, try to tasks like, even making your cup of coffee in the morning. Pardon me. You want to set everything up, have the coffee maybe ready, or just I don't know, have the cop set out. These are things that I do. I set my breakfast up the night before because I know that they're things that I don't want to think about it. They're small tasks, so menial tasks. Try to keep all of that simple, or create these habits so that your brain is free to think about some of the, focus on some of the more complicated tasks and tasks that require higher cognitive load. You need to make sure that you've got those habits in place, and that you make your day easier, setting yourself up for a win.
That's amazing. I know you need to jump off in a second, but I'll just second that as well. I literally just commented on someone's post about this very thing. I read years ago. I used to read Tim Ferriss's newsletter or his blog.
Oh yeah.
And he had somebody on and was talking about it was like he called it like ego points or something like that, and it was talking about all the micro decisions that we have to make in our day, like the clothes, what we're going to wear, what we're going to eat, and things like that. And yeah, and it's so true. And that's what you'll hear, like Mark Zuckerberg for years wore like the same shirt every day. He just had multiples of the same shirt, so he didn't have to think about what he was going to wear. For me, I used to have the same breakfast every single morning, spinach omelette every single morning without fail. And it just kept things simple, because what am I going to eat? How am I going to prepare it? Even when I go to the supermarket, I'm buying more or less the same stuff each time. So I don't have to think, so I can put that cognitive load, cognitive currency into something else, So yeah. Anyway, Charlotte, I know you need to run, so thanks so much for this. Just quickly, I know what the answer is going to be, but where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Charlotte Lloyd Sales. And you can find me, I have a podcast, Simply Sales and Marketing. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, and it's also on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn group, so give it a listen. 20 to 25-minute episodes. If you're in sales or in marketing, you'll get some really good tips to take away. You can find my sales tips on TikTok, Charlotte's Sales Tips. I share 1 or 2 videos a week on LinkedIn from TikTok directly. So if you want to find me there. And I am on Instagram, but it's not for the sales community. It's more fashion, travel inspiration. So Charlotte in the World, but you probably don't want to follow me on there.
I'll put all the links in the description for this on Spotify and YouTube anyway.
Brill.
Cool.